First contact with Joshua Put.
Hello and welcome to First Contact Radio. Thanks for being here. Today it is Friday. It is the 17th day of November 2017, 28th of Cheshvan on the Jewish calendar year 5778. It's the end of the month on this calendar. When we return next week, or when next week arrives, it will be in a new month, the month of Kislev, which starts on Sunday. From an astrological standpoint, we're looking at the same sun in Scorpio, water sign. It's at 25-degree mark. It's got 5 more to go before it moves into the next sign, Sagittarius. The moon sign, which is the underlying energy, is currently in Scorpio as well. However, we can see that when we progress this forward, one day it changes into Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, where it will remain over the course of the weekend. And presently we are just shy of a new moon, which will be happening at 3:42 a.m. California time, West Coast time. Wherever you're at, adjust accordingly. All right, so here we are. We've got the moon phases. We've got the astrology, Scorpio and Scorpio. And we've got Sagittarius. So let's take a look at what this is dealing with us. As we know, Scorpio, right here, a water sign dealing with the emotions, the feelings. We're coming to the last week of that. Okay, so the last period of time when these emotions are bubbling up from the surface for us to deal with. And then, of course, our moon sign, which is transitioning from Scorpio today, tomorrow, and over the weekend, where it's going to be a fire sign. So that underlying energy is like a fire lit underneath a pot of water. How is it going to turn out? Will the water boil because the fire gets so hot, the ideas, the being expressed, or will we be able to temper that fire a bit? If we can temper that fire, we make it useful, because fire is representative of ideas. So if we can temper those ideas, then we can put ourselves in a much better situation to be able to be effective, because tempering our ideas means we're making them in a bit more of a useful manner, so that when they are dealing and connecting with the emotions, they're not all scattered. Okay? And then, of course, with this new moon energy coming in for the course of this weekend, that adds a whole new element of a fresh start to some degree or another. Okay, so that's the energy we're looking at right now and over the course of this weekend. So a number of occurrences been happening this week as far as progress here in the United States, a number of really good things that are taking place. Now, the mainstream media is remaining fixated on the Roy Moore story, and now they're moving into the Al Franken story, and it's going to continue to expand as we hear more and more, because there's more and more cases of this going on. I have a feeling we're going to hear about a lot more of these Democratic congresspersons that are going to get caught up in this. One of these days we're going to hear the name Adam Schiff and sexual allegations. It's only a matter of time. He looks like somebody who would be engaged in that sort of activity. It's my personal opinion, but I think there's a lot of other people who feel that way as well. We just listen to the guy talk and we understand that he's not on the up and up. All right, one of the good things that happened, more than 200 MS13 members were arrested in a major Trump administration gang sweep. Operation Raging Bull was conducted across the United States October 8th to October 11th. It concluded with the arrest of 214 members of MS13. President Donald Trump has directed law enforcement officials to focus resources on combating transnational gangs, including MS13. The Trump administration announced a major gang sweep Thursday with the arrest of more than 200 members of the violent street gang MS13. Officials from the Department of Homeland Security and Justice Department said Operation Raging Bull was conducted across the United States from October 8th through November 11th and concluded with the arrest of 214 MS-13 gang members. We will not rest until every member, associate, and leader of MS-13 has been held accountable for their crimes, says Thomas Horman, Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This was the second phase of a federal effort to target MS-13. The first phase involved 53 arrests in El Salvador in September after an 18-month investigation. In a statement, Attorney General Jeff Sessions said more than 1,200 gang members have been convicted so far this year, and about 4,000 have been arrested and charged. He said the arrest will help make the country safer by taking MS-13 off of our streets for good. All right, that's a very good thing. Very, very good thing. We want to get these criminals off of the streets as much as possible. And if they are causing problems, all the better that they get off the streets, and the sooner the better. Okay, so switching gears here, let's take a look at the Uranium 1 scandal that's involving. We know that there is movement with this. We know that information has come out really showing Hillary Clinton's connection to this. The movie Clinton Cash was out a long time ago, which really outlined the information that we are hearing now. So there's a lot of evidence about this. And the most recent one I told you about yesterday was this FBI informant. We've heard about it in the past. They were going to come forward, and finally it's getting closer and closer. Yesterday, I gave you the name of the man, according to Reuters, William D. Campbell. And so now here's a little more info on this. It says the Sessions DOJ told Reuters the man's name is William D. Campbell, and he worked as a lobbyist for a Russian firm. According to reporter John Solomon, the informant is a consultant, and his evidence will show Russian agents with a suitcase of cash to bribe the Clintons for U.S. uranium. Solomon says the Reuters report today downplaying the informant is completely inaccurate. The informant says he's in fear for his life since he was outed by the Sessions DOJ. Campbell will reportedly testify on Monday. The informant will testify next week before Congress. Okay, so that's the basics on this. The thing we want to hope for is to make sure that the informant actually does make it to Monday, because we know that there are these very strange circumstances around the Clintons where people end up committing weird cases of suicide, you know, the kind of suicide where you have a double shot to the back of the head, and then you drag yourself into places like oceans, and then you swim with the bullets in your head until you end up someplace else where you didn't get started. A lot of these weird things happen, you know, all the strange circumstances that you hear about people committing suicide all seem to happen around the Clintons in the most bizarre ways. Probably because they're involved with the killing of these people. So it's not really suicide as it is murder, and then they're calling it suicide. One of these days, our media personalities are going to wake up. What's it going to take? Is it going to be something unfortunate, like one day someone in one of their families is affected by their lies and that wakes them up? I hope it doesn't get to that extremes, but unfortunately, in the society that we live in, we know that it often takes those kind of extremes to wake people who are very much asleep to wake up. All right, here's another drop of information on JFK. Press release today, Friday, November 17th, the fifth public release this year of the National Archives posted 10,744 records subject to President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act. All of the documents released today are from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Of the documents released today, 8,336 documents are released in their entirety. 2,408 are released with limited redactions. Also, this is the first time for 144 of the documents. Release records are available for download. You click that link right there. The versions released today were processed by the FBI and in accordance with the President's guidance are being posted expeditiously in order to make the documents available to the public. Even before the March deadline established by the President on October 26, 2017, any information that has been redacted from the records in this public release remains subject to further review by the FBI and the National Archives in accordance with the President's direction. The National Archives released 13,213 documents November 9th, 676 documents November 3rd, 2,891 documents October 26th, and 3,810 records on July 24th. The National Archives established the John F. Kennedy Assassination Record Collection in November 1992, and it consists of approximately 5 million pages of records. The vast majority of the collection has been publicly available without any restriction since the late 90s. Okay, so you know what to do. We need to dig through all of these files, and I know that process has already begun. As we dig through, we'll find out information. As we find out information, we'll be able to put together more pieces to the story. Put these pieces together. We kind of already know what happens. The CIA, their fingerprints are all over this murder. They're covering it up. And we have old Beelzebub himself, George H.W. Bush, is coming out of the shadows because, well, he's being implicated in these things to some degree or another. People who have been paying attention know. People who've been paying attention know. All right. Switching gears again, we're going to talk about control of the world. Control of the world has often been thought to be the subject or under the control of a few different families. The Saudi Arabian certainly is one of those groups that has been watched for a while, and another of these groups is the Rothschild family. What I have here is a very extensive report. It's a Thread reader is happy to present an unrolled Twitter story with 51 tweets. And these all involve the Rothschild family, a little bit of a history of them. The Rothschild family and the banking dynasty. They are the wealthiest and most powerful in the world. Let's explore the history of them. Okay, we have their house shield, the house of Rothschild. Members of the Rothschild family still living. Past members. You may not even know it, but the Jewish Rothschild family has been behind the curtains, pulling the strings of every ill inflicted on society. Here you have Nathan Rothschild, one of his phrases, "I care not what puppet is in place upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the money supply." Nathan Rothschild. Here we have another one from, says, "If my sons did not want war, there would be none." Okay, 1763, the founding of the House of Rothschild, the New World Order, by Mayor Amschel Bauer, who was taught by his father, a moneylender. Amschel Moses Bauer taught his son Meyer everything about money lending and finance. Meyer then went to work for Oppenheimer Bank. He found much of his success in this endeavor and later returned home, purchased his father's business, and renamed it Rothschild, aka Red Shield. Working with the Oppenheimers, he learned that lending money to governments was more profitable than lending to individuals at interest. Towards the end of Mayer's life, he sent his 5 sons, Nathan, Solomon, Anselm, Carl, and James, to different countries to establish family banks. Solomon stayed in Austria, Carl traveled to Italy, James to France, Nathan to London, and Anselm stayed in Frankfurt, Germany. This was accurately depicted in the 1934 Hollywood movie, The House of Rothschild, in the scene below, and right there. To this day, the Rothschild family remains the dominant commanding force behind globalism, Zionism, environmentalism, and liberalism. 1774, the British Currency Act is introduced, which forbids the American colonies from issuing their own debt-free currency. A combination of the Tea Act of 1773, the Currency Act, and the Boston Massacre sparked a revolutionary spirit throughout the colonies. The Rothschilds financed the British resistance, while Jewish moneylender Chaim Solomon funds the American Revolution. It's possible he had ulterior motives. In 1776, the Jew Adam Weishaupt establishes the Illuminati, which was a secret society for wealthy socialites. They disbanded supposedly in 1784. Mr. Weishaupt was an acquaintance of the Rothschild family, and funded by them in secret they plotted to further the New World Order agenda. 1789, the French Revolution overthrows the monarchy of France. King Louis the 16th, Marie Antoinette, and 40,000 others are killed by the Jacobins. British historian Nestor Webster indicates a foreign source funding the Jacobins with hopes of starting a world revolution. Throughout the years in 1798 through 1815, Rothschild banks are established all across Europe. The brothers had succeeded. 1790, Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton clash over the first bank. Hamilton wins. The first Central Bank of America is founded. Alexander Hamilton was a New York banker, educated in a Jewish school, and founder of the first central bank in America. He was the Rothschild agent. 1799, the Rothschilds encountered the first major obstacle for world financial conquest. 1811, the Bank of America's 20-year charter is about to expire. President James Madison refuses to renew the charter. Britain threatens war. 1814, the Rothschild-financed war brought British forces to Washington, D.C. to protest the expiry of the bank. They burn the White House. Eventually, a storm extinguishes the fire and both countries make peace through negotiations. In 1816, the central bank is established. America now once again belongs to the Rothschilds. Within just 3 years, the bank creates its first panic, known as the Panic of 1819. The Panic of 1825 was engineered by the Bank of England. Throughout the 1832 to 1835, Andrew Jackson, president, battles with bank boss Nicholas Biddle. Andrew Jackson runs his entire campaign on killing the bank, and kill the bank he later did. Biddle then causes the recession of 1834. 1835, Jackson pays off the national debt, closes the central bank. The Rothschilds now begin assassination attempts on Jackson. All attempts on Jackson's life fail. In 1836, the Second Central Bank of America is killed. America is now free from the Rothschild clutches until 1913. Little known fact, Karl Marx, author of the Communist Manifesto, was related to the Rothschild family through marriage. 1840 through 1880, 7 assassination attempts are carried out against Queen Victoria. This sends a message of intimidation to the royal family. To this day, the Rothschild banking dynasty is run from Financial District, the City of London. The Queen does not dare confront them. The Rothschilds financed both sides during the American Civil War. The aim was to weaken both sides, afterwards taking control of America. 1865, President Abraham Lincoln is assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. He defied the Rothschilds of printing debt-free money, known as greenbacks. 1881, American President James Garfield is shot and later dies from the infected wound. Garfield, despised by bankers. Was this another assassination? 1881, Communist Reds finally assassinate Russia Tsar Alexander II. After several failed attempts, the Rothschilds are after Russia. The Rothschilds had their eyes on Russia for decades, as well as Germany, in which multiple attempts were made on Kaiser Wilhelm's life. Any country in which the Rothschilds did not have their financial grip were targeted with revolutions and assassinations of war. When Nathan Rothschild heard of Napoleon's return from exile, he instructed his workers to start selling bonds on the stock market. This caused everyone to believe Napoleon had won, and everyone proceeded to sell everything they had off in the stock market. However, when Nathan heard the victory at Waterloo through the pigeon carry, he brought up everything at rock-bottom prices. This is how the Rothschilds bought Britain. They control it through manipulation of the stock market and deceit. 1894, the communist Red kills the popular French president Marie-François Sade-Carnot. He was close friends with Tsar Alexander III. 1897, communist Reds kill Spanish Prime Minister Anton Cabones. 1898, Reds also kill Elizabeth of Austria, both popular national rulers of their day. The bloodlust of the violent communist Reds inspired an act to propaganda can be seen today with the Antifa movement, who are the modern-day Reds. So now we approach the 20th century. This has been but a mini compilation of events at the Rothschilds from the inception in 1900. If you want a more comprehensive read, then please read the book Duology, Planet Rothschild, which is an epic chronology of events. For the Rothschilds, the 20th century saw their most successful but also the biggest obstacles they had to overcome. The biggest was Adolf Hitler. Let's get a silly myth out of the way that Hitler was a Rothschild. This is ludicrous. Hitler was arrested or had arrested a Rothschild for his banking practices. Hitler almost brought the Rothschild New World Order to an end as National Socialism threatened to spread across every nation. Okay, how many know that World War II is one of the biggest cover-ups in history? We all know the history. That's the Rothschild banking dynasty from inception to the 20th century. The one family behind the curtain is pulling the strings. Okay, so there's a nice little history of the Rothschilds. And again, in 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act came in, that was the final time the bank took over, and the rest has been history for us here in America. The story involves the Rothschild family. It says, breaking news, at least 4 feared dead as a helicopter and a plane collide in midair over the Rothschild family Buckinghamshire estate. At least 4 people are feared dead after a light aircraft and helicopter crashed in midair over the Buckinghamshire this afternoon. Wreckage from both aircraft is believed to have fallen from the sky after locals living near the historic Waddesdon Manor in Buckinghamshire heard a loud bang shortly after midday. A local resident told Mail Online, my father heard a loud bang. My mother said a man who I think was someone who had been out walking nearby then went running up to the manor to say there had been a crash. It didn't happen directly over the grounds, but in a woodland nearby. My father ran up to the scene. Everyone is helping in the emergency services. Both aircraft involved have taken off from Wycombe Air Park near High Wycombe and were flying at a low altitude. All right, so there you go. We'll follow up on that story and continue to monitor it. Check the Twitter feed. As I know more, I will post that. But here we have one of the ruling families, possibly one of the targets to be taken down in this entire draining of the swamp process. And so now we've got a little bit more history and insight. We'll see where that is going. Now, one of the things that we know is that the liberals are continuing to play the same playbook over and over and over again. And it would be helpful if we understood what that playbook is. If only we could figure that out. Well, we have. It's very simple. It's Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. These are the playbook they use over and over and over again ad nauseum. But as long as we pretend that these things aren't happening, they'll continue to use these rules against us. So here they are. Rule number 1, power is only what you have, is not only what you have, but what your enemy thinks you have. Okay, so the first objective is to make yourself seem bigger than you are. Okay, so we hear these stories. We're going to come out, we're going to kick everyone's butt. Well, no, they're not. Or when Antifa said millions of their comrades were going to come out together to stand up. There aren't millions of them. But they're hoping that people will read this and think that their group is bigger than it is. Okay, so use intimidation. Power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. 2, you never go outside of the expertise of your people. Okay, because as long as you stay within that bubble of the people who are feeling the same way, you're never going to get any challenge. And therefore, you just build and build your attack. Number 3, whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Look for ways to increase insecurity, anxiety, or uncertainty. This happens all the time. Watch how many organizations under attack are blindsided by seemingly irrelevant arguments that they are often forced to address. Okay? They try to knock you off balance by throwing things that have nothing to do with the conversation. Next, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. If the rule is that every letter gets a reply, then send 30,000 letters. You can kill them with this because they can't possibly obey all of their own rules. Okay. Number 5, ridicule is a man's most potent weapon, and there is the whole thing right there. You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a this, you're a that. It's their weapon. There's no defense for that. It's irrational, it's infuriating, and it works as a key pressure point to force the enemy into concessions. 6, a good tactic is one your people enjoy. Okay, you keep doing it without urging, and you come back to do more. 7, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Don't become old news. Even radical activists get bored. So to keep them excited and involved, organizers are constantly coming up with new tactics. But the new tactics are all based on 12 rules. Keep the pressure on. Never let up. Keep trying new things to keep the opposition off balance. As the opposition masters one attack, hit them from the flank with something new. Attack, attack from all sides, never giving the reeling organization a chance to rest, regroup, recover, or re-strategize. Number 9, the threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. This goes all the way up to the point number 1, where you make yourself seem bigger than you are. Imagination and ego can dream up many more consequences than in the activist. Perception is reality. Large organizations always prepare a worst-case scenario, something that may be furthest from the activist mind. The upshot is the organization will expend enormous time and energy creating in its own collective mind the directive of conclusions. The possibilities can easily poison the mind and result in demoralization. Rule 10, if you wish to push a negative hard enough, it will push through and become a positive. Okay, so you just keep pushing the point, pushing it until people believe it. Keep pushing the negative to eventually say, okay, that must be true. Rule number 11, the price of successful attack is constructive alternative. Never let the enemy score points because you're caught without a solution to the problem. Old saw, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Activist organizations have an agenda and their strategy is to hold a place at the table, to be given a form to wield their power so they have a compromise solution. And 12, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Cut off the support network, isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people, not institutions. People hurt faster than institutions. Okay, so these are the rules. These are what they're doing that are out there. They make themselves seem bigger. They use ridicule. They continue to push those same processes over and over. They stay within their own groups. When they want to try to get you, they try to isolate people so they can pick them off in that way. That's their strategy. They do it over and over and over again. If we know their strategy, all shall be well. God has a strategy too. It's called the Ten Commandments. Let me read these. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. 2, you shall not make of yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children of the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. 3, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guileless who takes his name in vain. 4, remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and hallowed it. 5, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land in which the Lord your God is giving you.
90 seconds.
6, you shall not murder. 7, you shall not commit adultery. 8, you shall not steal. 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And 10, you shall not cover your neighbor's house. You shall not cover your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. Okay, and then Jesus came along and said that we need to love one another as we love ourselves, and to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind. So these are the rules that God has. So while man may follow particular rules that do have effect here in the physical realm, God has God's rules. And if we follow these rules, if we understand the deeper aspect of what they're about, well, then our lives become better because we're doing things that are beneficial to our lives as opposed to things that are not beneficial. It's pretty simple, really, when we break it down and understand that all we have to do is follow the rules. God wants us to win. God put us down here so that we could win. God doesn't know anything but winning, but success. And so when we get into the feelings of not winning, well, that's our own personal things. We need to fix that ourselves. Have a great weekend. Read through all the information. The links are available. I'll be back. Well, I won't be back next week. I'm going to take the time off for Thanksgiving, so you have a great week. I may check in one of these days here and there next week. But until then, I love you. Keep loving each other, and I will talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.